Yo guys, what's up? It's Speo here with the Voice of Reason, coming at you today with another Reason quick tip in which I'll focus on the tail on a dubstep snare drum. Because especially in dubstep, what comes after a snare can really change the way we perceive the whole drum. And to illustrate this, I've got a quick little example prepared, and just listen to it and watch out for the snare. So as you've heard, as I muted the snare top mixer channel, which is basically just the snare tail, the whole track just lost on impact. And it's amazing what a little bit of reverby white noise can do to the whole track if we add it to the snare. It just gives it a much broader and wider feel. So let's imagine we've got our Kong set up right here to play a nice little dubstep beat, but we don't have the exaggerated snare tail yet. So let's get to building one. First up, you want to select a free drum pad on your Kong, and I assume you're using a Kong, but if you're using a red drum, it's a really similar process. So I've got the drum 10 slot right here, which is free. And now I'm going to flip the rack around and see if we still have some free outputs, and we do. And it's, for example, 15/16 is free, so I'm going to select it as the drum output for my drum 10 drum slot on the Kong. Next up, I'm gonna create a mixer channel, flip the rack around and route the 15/16, which we've just selected for our drum 10 slot, into the input of this mixer channel. Now we can rename it, and we have our snare tail on an extra mixer strip, which is always a good thing because now we can process it with all of these nice options right here. So now that this is set up, we can select a clap sample. You could even select a snare sample for your tail and just cut out the first thing by adding some attack, the first impact. But a clap sample is usually also a very good way to go. So I'm gonna chuck in a NN Nano sampler on my 10th drum slot and select a nice little clap sample. Yeah, we can work with this one. Now as you can hear, this sample has a lot of impact on the first transient, but this impact is already supplied by the actual snare. So what we're gonna do is, we're gonna add some attack to this clap. Yeah, that sounds a lot better for the tail. Also, I don't like the way the noise gets kind of filtered to the end of this sample, so I'm gonna bring the decay down a bit. So we only have this little white noise stretch in the middle. Sweet. Next up, I'm gonna show the insert effects on my snare tail mixer channel, and I'm gonna create a reverb unit because we want a lot of kind of reverby action going after the snare to make it sound big and, yeah, huge. I'm gonna click Remote Programmer to open up the algorithm selector, and I'm gonna choose the plate algorithm simply because it's a simple algorithm with a good sound to it. Gonna bring the decay to 90 and the dry wet to about 70. And I'm gonna bring the high EQ up a bit so we have some more highs in this reverb. Sweet. Next up, I'm gonna create a equalizer because we still have some lows in this tail, and if you have a lot of lows on something like a snare tail with loads of reverb, it's gonna muddy up your mix and it's gonna sound bad in the end. So I'm gonna select the parameter 1, bring the frequency all the way down, and the gain as well, and the Q as well. And then we have this nice little curve, which just takes out some of the lows. Then I'll use parameter 2 to color the sound further a bit by cutting some frequencies around 600 Hertz. Sweet. And then I'm gonna boost some highs using the high shelf. And I'm gonna bring the frequency up just a tad. I actually bring the frequency down a bit. Sweet. Now that this is set up, we can move on to creating a stereo imager, because we want this to be as stereo as it can be. So we'll bring the wide up a bit to about 30. Don't bring it up too far because it'll start sounding unnatural. Just bring it to about 30. At least that's what I do. So now that this snare tail mixer strip is set up and it sounds good, I'd say. We can link it up to the snare drum on my Kong using the link pad group. Now I've already selected the E pad group for my initial snare punch. So I'm gonna do the same thing on my tail right now. There you go. So this is set up, but I still feel like we've got too many mids on here, so I'm just gonna bring down this parameter that I'd set in the mix in the mid frequency range. I'm gonna bring the Q down a bit more. Sweet. And now let's listen to the whole track again with the new snare tail. Sweet. On the initial snare tail, by the way, I copied this over from another project that I'm working on. I'm using the Antidote reverb because it sounds pretty awesome, I'd say. I really love it. But of course it works just as fine with the RV700. Another cool tip that I'd like to add to this quick tip tutorial thing video is that you can actually use the noise generator on the FX slots right here on the Kong to get even a more noisier kind of, noisier, that was not on purpose, but a noisier snare tail, which will make it sound even bigger. So I'm gonna add a noise generator to my clap sample. And at first that doesn't sound really good, so we'll bring down the click to 0 and add some attack to the noise generator as well, and I'll bring the pitch up a bit as well. Now we can also do fancy things like adding sweep and resonance to the noise. That you can change to your heart's desire, but I'll just bring it down because I like the sound of clean noise. Sweet, and now let's listen to the whole thing once again. You can of course then adjust the individual levels by using the level knob on the NN Nano or the level knob on the noise generator, and you can get a cool mix of the two individual elements this way. Alright. This quick tip has gotten a little long, hasn't it? But it's alright, I suppose. Right, this is it for the dubstep snare drum tail tutorial. I hope it's useful and you go on to making some sick dubstep this way. And I'll see you next time. Have a good one, or whatever you're having.